Folks, we're joined now with Fritz Coleman, who I worked together with back in the early 90s. And you've been doing weather in Los Angeles at KMBC for about 40 years now. Is that correct?
That's correct. I retired.
Yeah.
I was
Now,
escorted gently to the door 25 years ago.
have you ever seen anything quite like this in all your days of doing the weather?
No, I think I've experienced the worst wind in my long experience with weather 2 nights ago.
Right,
I live in a San Fernando Valley community of Toluca Lake, which is the flatlands. It's not
right.
near the hills. It's not near one of those fire-prone areas that you've been seeing on the news. But the other night we had 85-mile-an-hour winds, and it was frightening. I think of all the weather elements, snow or rain, wind is the scariest for me. And so there hasn't been a lot of sleep around here. It was nasty. Now,
Yeah.
wind has settled down today. It's below 25 miles an hour, but they do expect the Santa Anas to pulse back up tonight a little bit. Not nearly as bad as a couple of nights ago, but with these fires raging, any wind is an enemy at this point.
Now, with your proximity to where the Eaton fire is, that's the one out by Pasadena.
Right.
You concerned about maybe some embers dropping over into your area?
Well, that's the thing. The embers, when you have 50, 60, 70 mile an hour winds, embers can carry for several miles. And so even people that aren't connected with what we would think would be a fire prone area, what we call a red flag area, like a foothill or a mountain, everybody's too dry and everybody is susceptible to getting these embers blowing on the Santa Ana winds. And so um, that's an issue. And even though the winds have settled down, uh, we still have a danger because the Pacific Palisades fire is 0% contained. And I think it still is up in the Eaton fire too, which is in the Altadena area. That's in the San Gabriel Mountain foothills. Foothill areas are especially prone to fire because they have a lot of wildland vegetation up there. We've built a lot of homes probably where we shouldn't. And so those places are prone to fire. So uh, all of those places are really still vulnerable, even with the winds settling down, because now they can do the air assault. They have tankers and they have helicopters, water dropping helicopters, which are enormously helpful, but still the problem exists.
Yeah, in the beginning, when we had those 80, 100 mile an hour winds, the aircraft couldn't get up to suppress the fire. So that helped to get those fires really raging and expanding exponentially.
Yeah, yeah. When you have, LA is considered the horizontal city. And when you have a big, wide city, sometimes the only way you can fight these wildland fires is with aircraft. There aren't enough um, uh, professional firefighters, either CAL FIRE or the local fire people, who can fight fires that have a 20 or 30 mile an hour front line. So they rely on water dropping helicopters and tankers. And we're borrowing these from other parts of the United States. Anywhere in the western third of the United States, from the Rockies to where you are in the Northwest to Southern California, all have these well entrenched firefighting systems. And so we borrow equipment from it. We've got equipment coming from Colorado, from Utah, from New Mexico,
We
from
got
Northern
guys from
California.
here
And
staying
it's
on.
like an Air Force
Yeah.
working this afternoon, which is great because that's the only way we're going to be able to suppress this fire.
Yeah, we have our local wildfire teams are going down there too. I think they're going to be there today or tomorrow. So yeah,
Yeah.
again,
They
all
call
the
it a mutual aid situation because you have not only city firefighters in the localities where the fire exists, then you have the county, CAL FIRE, then you have California state resources. And so they're all what they call mutual aid and they all come to one another's um, help.
yeah. Now, is the smoke a concern? There's a lot of that coming,
Yes.
especially from the Eaton fire towards where you are, and
Yeah.
then the Palisades fire kind of pushes out to sea. But how's the smoke
Yes.
scenario?
That's exactly right. We have a Santa Ana wind, which is an offshore wind, a north to south or a northeast to southwest wind. And people living at the coast get the benefit of that because it blows all the particulate matter, all the smoke. And even when we're not burning, pollution gets blown out to sea. However, those of us that stand between the deserts and the sea get that stuff blown in our direction. So you're right. The San Gabriel Valley, which is where Altadena is, and the Eaton fire is east of me. And since Santa Ana winds blow predominantly from the northeast and east, we will get some of the smoke and the particulate matter for them. So we do have air quality alerts in effect. We have this red flag warning, which is a extreme fire danger in effect until tomorrow afternoon, which is not only 70, 80-mile-an-hour winds, it's something that people who don't live in a desert area can even comprehend. We have single digit relative humidity. We have relative humidity, moisture in the air 5 to 8%, which doesn't even seem possible. But that's a third of the equation of a dangerous fire situation.
Right. And it was a wet summer and a dry winter, and all the recipe for disaster is in place, right?
You got it exactly right. What happens is if you have we did a couple seasons ago have a particularly wet winter, and during those wet winters, the vegetation. I'm from California, so I have to mention vegetarians.
They're
Uh,
vegan.
the vegetarians, the vegetation grows quickly, and then what happens is when you have another dry period, you have all this fuel for wildland fires, which is exactly as you said, what's going on right now.
Anything on a personal note you want to add about maybe some friends in the Palisades or in Pasadena area, Altadena? Anything you know
I,
anything?
I, I'm living in a condominium now, and the neighbor right across the hall from me has sons, and those sons have two friends, both having lost their homes in the Altadena fire, and they moved in with them. So this situation is right next door to me. It's just heartbreaking, and you're seeing a lot of it on the news. And you know this, John. In our business, we're not supposed to mention the cost of homes because every home is a castle to somebody.
Right.
But there are in Pacific Palisades, that it's up the hill about 500 feet from Malibu. It's some of the most expensive real estate in the United States, and it's flattened. It looks like a nuclear disaster over there. And you can't help, even if you can't afford to live there, you can't help but be conscious of the amount of damage that's over there. It's awful. And
Yeah.
Pacific Palisades, I have to think, is one of the most beautiful spots on the coastline of California. So
Right. Yeah. And it all happened within like 12 to 36 hours. Amazing.
unbelievable,
Yeah.
unbelievable. And we have one more pulse tonight. We're sort of in the hammock between Santa Ana conditions.
Right.
The one we had the other night, 50, 60, 70-mile-an-hour winds, will not be repeated tonight. But 30, 40, 50, when you still have a fire that has 0% containment, can be an issue.
Yeah, exactly.